So we have our final story of the day. And this is a little wacky. This is I read this story and I thought to myself, I cannot believe that this is actually a a um a fucking thing. So the White House is apparently mulling ways in which to increase birth rates. They want a new baby boom. And I have to find a new article because the one that I read on Vanity Fair is, of course, fucking paywalled because I read it one too many times. So I have this new article from The Independent. The new baby boom, how the White House is looking to jumpstart the nation's birth rate. The Trump administration is reportedly fielding ideas for how to increase the declining U.S. birth rate, a longtime priority of White House figures like Vice President J.D. Vance, who has 3 children, and Elon Musk, who has like 14 children with 7 different baby mamas, all through IVF, by the way. Since 1990, the U.S. total fertility rate has declined from 2.1 births per woman, enough to fully replace the current population, to 1.62 births per woman in 2023, below the replacement level, according to a March report from the CDC. Part of a larger decline in birth rates in wealthy peer countries. We're seeing, I think, South Korea is struggling with their birth rates. So is Japan. I don't know if you guys have noticed that all of the wealthy capitalist nations are struggling with declining birth rates. I wonder if that could maybe be a reason. And yes, I'm being facetious. It is obviously the reason, but we'll read this a little more before I dive into that. Experts point to a variety of causes for the trend, including the increased prevalence of dual income households, cost of living issues, and changing social mores. Oh, so they do tangentially touch on capitalism. Cool. While the U.S. birth rate rests between comparable nations, higher than that of Japan, Italy, and China, on par with the U.K. and Australia, but lower than South Korea. But lower than. Wait, what? Whatever. The declining future figure is a subject of concern for many. A shrinking population could struggle to invigorate the economy and strain the social safety net as the population skews increasingly older. Groups have pitched the administration on a variety of ideas, including a $5,000 baby bonus for new mothers, expanded child tax credits, which the Republicans voted to continue to fund, funding menstrual cycle education, and reserving space in federal programs like Fulbright fellowships for people who are married or have children, according to the New York Times. Except all of these quote unquote incentives only apply to married people. They only apply to married couples. So guess what? If you're a single mom or you have a baby out of wedlock, get fucked. The Trump administration does not give a shit about you. They only give a shit about married couples. But I have an idea for this. How about we have a healthcare system where it doesn't cost like 50 grand to deliver a fucking baby? Medicare for all would greatly increase people considering having children because it alleviates the initial financial burden of having a child, or the anxiety of getting slapped with a fucking 5-figure bill, all because you went to the hospital and pushed for a couple days. That would greatly improve or reduce people's anxiety. What about universal childcare? Hello, childcare is expensive. The the inflated cost is inherently prohibitive. If you get rid of that additional cost associated with a child, because mind you, the figure is like what? It's like it costs $500,000 per child over the course of their first 18 years. Getting rid of childcare slashes an enormous financial burden from that couple. It also reduces their need to rely on their family members all the time. Which, listen, I've babysat kids before. I have never, I've babysat my nieces and my nephews. I've never looked at them as a burden. But it's very difficult trying to find a schedule. it's very difficult trying to find a schedule for people to look after your child. And of course, not everybody has that luxury. Maybe they live out of state. You know, they live in fucking Oklahoma, or they live in, California, and the rest of their family lives in New York or Seattle. Free childcare, free childcare Monday through Friday for, the entirety of the workday would also go tremendously far in as an incentive for people to give birth. You don't need these like extra fucking checks. You don't need a $5,000 check for someone to have a child. Just bring back the tax credit. That's a yearly check that people get for each of their children. That is also an incentive that we already had in place. And it was one that worked. The child tax credit cut child poverty by like 40 or 50%. It worked. People liked it. The motivations behind such ideas are numerous, though many align with the right's emphasis on the family as the building blocks of society. Project 2025, the conservative policy blueprint that's informed many administration ideas, opens with a chapter on how to, quote, restore the family as the centerpiece of American life, urging traditional roles for parents. Okay, yeah, that's another thing. Allow parents to live whatever fucking role they want. The wife or the mother of this child does not have to be barefoot in the kitchen making meatloaf while her husband is at work. What if she's the breadwinner? What if she's like an engineer or a doctor and the husband's a stay-at-home dad? Don't shame them for being a stay-at-home dad. They're doing like their parental duty. It's no more or less glamorous than being a stay-at-home mom. You are doing an additional full-time job on top of your potential part-time job and on top of your spouse's full-time job. The convener of Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation, is reportedly involved in the birth boom discussions with the administration, urging ideas like researching root health and environmental causes of infertility while expressing reticence over in vitro fertilization, a core cause of the administration. This goes back to the healthcare argument. If people are not able to conceive children naturally, allow them access to in vitro fertilization. Another thing that is remarkably expensive, prohibitively expensive in some regard. I think this also goes without saying, but I should say it nonetheless. Don't strip away women's access to healthcare. Don't restrict their bodily autonomy. If a woman lives in a red state with strict abortion laws, she is probably going to reconsider trying for a child because a miscarriage could result in her being charged with manslaughter or murder. That is not an environment conducive to fostering higher birth rates. Women need to know that if they experience something in their pregnancy that leads to them needing or having a miscarriage, that they won't be prosecuted for it and that they're able to go to a doctor and receive treatment. Others at the foundation have pushed for quote-unquote natural fertility education on how to prevent unwanted pregnancy without using birth control by using menstrual cycle tracking. If you don't want people, if you want people to not to have unwanted pregnancies, you need to teach them sex education in school. That's the only way. There are outcomes that show this. There are studies that show this. There are teen pregnancy statistics that show teenagers who are not taught sexual education are more likely to become pregnant than teens who are. But like the whole conservative approach to this is archaic and just flat out fucking stupid. Get with the times, Grandpa. This isn't 1957 anymore. All right? You can't just fuck all day and have 7 children. There's way more stuff going on. This is the modern world. Like we need modern solutions to this quote unquote crisis that conservatives think we're experiencing, which unironically is perpetuated by them. Like, hello, Ronald Reagan, mega capitalist, well, also conservative, but like this is literally the fault of capitalism. Capitalism does not allow for people to, well, I mean, it allows people to have children, but there is so much more reluctance in this system and also in the political ecosystem that make people more anxious to have children. Obviously, that's not everybody, but the people who have those concerns, they are valid. Much like if people want to have 3 or 4 kids, be my fucking guest. Like if that's what fulfills you, that's fulfills you. And I hope that I hope that you are blessed with the best children ever. But there also needs to be a societal shift in people not judging others for not wanting children, which anecdotally does happen a lot. I say anecdotally because I don't have any, fucking hard data on this, but just from like, being out in the world, if people ask you that if people ask you if you want to have children or not and you say, "Oh, I don't know, we're not really thinking about it." They kind of judge you a little bit. Like they kind of judge you. There needs to be the removal of that stigma. If people are happy without children, that's great. If people are happy with children, that's that's also great. But if you want to convince those who are potentially considering not having children for like societal reasons, you need to change society. You don't need a $5,000 fucking check to incentivize someone to have children. You need Medicare for all and universal child care and universal pre-K and a more well-funded school system that allows these children like after school programs and extracurriculars. So that way, if the parents are working odd hours, they don't have to worry about their fucking child. Such ideas have found a willing ear in the administration, which has said it will release a blueprint for how to increase access to in vitro fertilization next month. Trump has vowed to be the fertilization president. That's fucking gross. Ew. Ew. The fertilization president. Well, I mean, he's got like 5 kids. I'd say that's a lot. That's a lot of children. Five kids is a lot. 3 kids is a lot. I'm one of 3, and yeah, it's a lot. While Vance has made a point of appearing at public events with his 3 children and once called declining birth rates a civilizational crisis driven by quote cat ladies on the childish left. Yeah, that's also not great rhetoric for this, JD Vance. I'm sorry. Musk frequently posts about the declining birth rate and has claimed the childless have little stake in the future. He is the father of at least 14 children, though at least one of them has publicly criticized him for being a very critical and absentee parent. Yeah, Elon Musk is a deadbeat dad, except for X, who he parades around like a human shield. I also, as as someone without children, I I object to the notion that the childless have little stake in the future because it totally just disregards the fact that like people without children don't have children in their lives that they are close with and that they would want to have a prosperous future. Like I myself, I have like 3 nieces and nephews. I have 2 other children or 2 other babies that I help my mom babysit. A couple of my friends have children, and like all young children too. The idea that I don't want a brighter future for them is really more projection than anything else because it signals that if you only want a brighter future for your children, it means that like you are selfish to a degree. Obviously, I mean like exclusively your children. But if you also have children, you are more likely to be empathetic towards other people's children. In this instance, Elon Musk, I know, has no empathy and does not give a fuck about anybody other than himself. He reportedly wants to populate the world with more babies, quote, of high intelligence as part of a wider effort to get humans to Mars, according to recent reporting from the Wall Street Journal. Yeah, dude, he's a fucking eugenicist. Of course, he only wants, quote unquote, high intelligence children to be born. But like who makes that distinction? Right? It's inherently white supremacist and eugenicist, obviously. The push could provide a rare window for bipartisan cooperation on women's and health issues, though it faces considerable political challenges, including a divided Congress, a conservative movement split over issues like in vitro fertilization, and liberals wary of certain wings of the wider natalist movement, which includes everyone from religious conservatives to opponents of same-sex couples and outright eugenicists. In practice, the administration's actions have cut a variety of directions on the birth issue. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy has directed his agency to, quote, give preference to communities with marriage and higher birth rates than the national average. Yeah, that's fucking, you're a freak, dude. Like, you are unfit to be, you're unfit to serve in public office. I'm sorry. If you're going this far out of your way to cater to specific groups of people, you're a fucking asshole. You're a disgrace. At the same time, the administration's push to slash federal spending and radically shrink the federal workforce has cut back teams that monitor fertilization issues in health and analyze health data, while laying off thousands of Department of HHS workers and attempting to cut hundreds of $millions in health research funding. Critics also complain that while the Trump administration and its supporters make abortion increasingly difficult, little is being done to help families or single mothers cope with child raising amid poverty and a paycheck to paycheck existence. Yeah, this goes back to various things that I mentioned: having a more robust healthcare system, having a more robust childcare system, which includes free childcare and free universal pre-K, as well as the extended child tax credit, which directly puts money back into the pockets of people with dependents. This is not rocket science. You can't be mega capitalist, Mr. Neoliberal, and then be shocked when the hellscape that you have created is deterring people from wanting to have children. With cost of living a major factor in many couples' decisions on whether to start a family, and continued economic chaos of the Trump tariffs could also play a role. Prior to the second Trump term, justices appointed by the Republican in his first outing were the key votes in the 2022 Supreme Court ruling overturning the constitutional right to an abortion, a landmark turn in U.S. policy that health experts say has caused expecting mothers to face health risks and death in states that have since moved to restrict forms of reproductive health care. I mentioned earlier with women being prosecuted for their miscarriages that happened to a woman in Georgia a couple weeks ago. There are multiple instances of pregnant women dying because they were unable to receive adequate health care. A couple of them were teenage parents. If I remember, I believe there was one in Texas and also one in Indiana. If I'm forgetting the specifics, I apologize. But yeah, this all factors into the healthcare reformation. Medicare for all is not just preventative. It's not just preventative physical care. It is also pregnancy care. I guess that would be natal care or whatever the fuck the word is. And also mental health care, which also plays into being a mother, you know, with postpartum depression and conditions of that nature. In addition, the dangerous crackdown on doctors, for example, caring for women suffering miscarriages, which end as many as 20% of pregnancies, 50% for women over 55. I will say this. I've said this multiple times on this show. I forgot who told me. It was either my wife or my mom. We were talking about miscarriages, and they said that, like, yeah, 1 in 5 women miscarriage. And I was flummoxed. I had no idea miscarriages were that prominent. And it's for that reason, like, prosecution laws when women have miscarriages are fucking inhumane, because a lot of the time, or in a miscarriage all of the time, the woman doesn't play a role in it. Unfortunately, like, things just happen, and the fetus I guess dies in the womb. If I'm being crass, I apologize. I don't mean to downplay that situation, but the point remains, like, it's out of control. It's out of the woman's control. And let's not forget, in some instances, if a woman does suffer a miscarriage and doesn't get the appropriate medical treatment, she herself can fucking die of sepsis, for example. Has convinced masses of doctors to choose less risky specialties or flee states with threatening conditions for obstetricians and gynecologists, leaving women scrambling to find reproductive health physicians. Basically, everything that Republicans and the Trump administration are doing in regards to attempting to boost birth rates is wrong, and they should consider the antithesis of literally everything that they are doing